So I'm Brian from Taiwan, and I'll talk about New Bloom, which was an independent media outlet that my friends and I started 10 years ago in 2014. And today it also runs a community space in Wanhua, Taipei. And so if you're ever in town, feel free to look us up, because we're always happy to do events, and we want to create opportunities for exchange with other places. So how do we start? I'll talk about that first. In 2014, there was an occupation of the Taiwanese legislature by student demonstrators in opposition to a trade deal with China. And so that was a very generational moment for my generation of Taiwanese young people. And so we stormed the legislature and we occupied for 23 days. And so this was a very profound impact on Taiwanese society, and there was a kind of upspringing of civil society in the wake of that. But particularly for us, we were all students at the time. We were participating in the movement. We charged the building. We charged multiple government buildings, in fact. And then after that, there was this question of what do we do after? Because we had seen the power then of civil society, of what happens when people take to the streets and can call for their government to account. But what happened was also we felt there was a lack of international discussion of the movement. And even in Taiwan itself, the media covered it sometimes in a very slanted light. And so there's a lot of attempts then after that to create new platforms, new organizations founded, new networks founded, and that included new media outlets. And so that was what had led to New Bloom. Because particularly for us, as we were involved in the movement as students, we felt that there was not a lot of international coverage of what was going on. And it represents what young people feel about their government, about their democratic aspirations for the future, and yet there was not a lot of attention being paid to that. And particularly in the face of threats from China, we do need the world to know, and we do need to build connections with the region and around. And a lot of us were part of a kind of reading group at National Yangming University. And a lot of the texts we read were political science or philosophy, and it was in English, so we tended to have better English. And so that's what led to talking about then forming a publication. And we felt that there was a need to have a publication that represented the voice of Taiwanese young people, particularly in an international kind of context. And so that's what happened, and we started making a publication. But then it's not very hard to just build an online publication, just we didn't have a lot of experience. We were all students, nobody had any background in journalism, and we were kids, and so we fought a lot about really petty, pointless things. But it ended up actually creating a publication, and 10 years later, we're still around. And so we do events all the time, try to table and get the word out. And just put out the publication itself. It's mostly online rather than print, but we do print once in a while. And we have various merch as well nowadays, because we've spread out a bit. And so this is what it looks like. We publish daily on Taiwanese politics. And so every day there's at least one article. And it's anything from commentary on with a political perspective on particularly Taiwanese politics or its position in the world. And we try to have a much more left-wing or progressive basis to that, because for us, we feel that a lot has been caught, particularly with the US, in this very rightward trend, and we really want to push against that. Because I think the values of Taiwanese young people are that we are progressive and not conservative. And unfortunately, because of geopolitics, we have been pushed to alignment, strangely enough, with very conservative political actors. And so that's what the radical perspectives aspect means. And we've also embarked on several other projects, for example, the Daybreak Project, which was a oral history archive of the Sunflower Movement. And so we went and interviewed 100 participants, or I did that specifically myself. And we made an oral history of that because we felt that, again, there's a need to have this thick description of what young people felt and how did they end up in activism and why. And we also organized a timeline of the movement and the different features or even the artwork and kind of catalog that, because it was a movement that was large enough to be transformative of society, and I think that there was not enough awareness of that or even documentation in Taiwan, as I mentioned. And currently we're actually working on a kind of follow-up to this, which is themed around the Milk Tea Alliance. So that's connecting Taiwan and Southeast Asia, because there have been so many movements in the region, in the Philippines, in, for example, Korea before, and as well as Thailand and Myanmar. And so now talking to activists in different regions and getting experiences, because there's all ways we can learn from each other, documenting the tactics that activists have learned from each other, but also state actors too, because they also do learn in terms of repressive tactics. And as activists, we should be ahead of the curve in learning about that. And so then we decided to do a physical space because we felt that just having an online space was not enough, actually. We need to get to know and talk to people. And so this was our first space. And we started this around 4 years ago, and that was right around the time of COVID, actually. And I think COVID showed particularly that there was a real need to have places for people to gather, interact. And so we had this first space, which was in a very unstable building, and eventually the roof caved in, actually. And so we moved to a different space, which is this space. And so now we currently run in Wanhua, Taipei, and we have a bar. And so here's me making drinks. And I don't suggest you order drinks from me because I'm a terrible bartender. I prefer writing. So it became a strange magazine in which the journalists also became bartenders. And it became our income model is a bit strange, where we're mostly funded by the bar. So we're an independent media outlet that's funded by alcohol. And so here's what an event looks like. We do talks and discussions, panels, also some exhibitions, because, again, there's a need for people to gather and talk and interact. We also do some music events. And so we run at least one event per week. We're not open regularly, but we do have 3 to 4 regular opening hours per week. And the idea is, particularly, I think we felt there was a need for a community just to be able to mobilize in times of political crisis and to build connections, particularly that are more deeply rooted than just, let's say, online interactions, which I think we're also gathered here today for this purpose. And so we also made a postcard that represents all of our team members. And these are pets of the different team members, and that's one of the pets in the background. And so just I thought I would end on that image. So thank you.